Hello, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Keon.
And this is Inevitable, that podcast where we don't even get to be the main character in our own story because this week we watched War Stories.
Written by Cheryl Cain.
Directed by James Contner.
And aired on December 6th, 2002. Listen, I don't know what I was about to say, actually. It was like 2022, maybe? Maybe I was about to say 2020. I don't know.
Who knows? Who knows? James Contner apparently worked as a... Apparently he hasn't directed since 2009.
Hey, he's one of those guys who just, like, disappears for 10 years and then comes back.
He's been doing some cinematography since then for some shorts. One that says completed on IMDb, but evidently not released. And he's been in the camera operator for some TV movies and TV series. He's a camera operator on the movie All That Jazz. God, that movie is so insane.
I've never heard of it. Maybe I have, actually. I don't know. I would have to hear a premise for it.
It's like director Bob Fosse makes this... It's like semi-autobiographical. I say semi-autobiographical because it does, the plot diverges from his real life in some places, Mm-hmm. And it's about a director. Yeah, it's about a director who's like burning himself to death, working on a production on Broadway and choreographing it and doing drugs to basically keep himself awake. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Just, that movie was crazy. The ending is insane. Anyway, we don't need to go into it too much.
Here we are, though, on what is maybe fittingly, I guess, the wackiest episode yet. I mean, not wacky as in like wacky and silly and funny, but just like, God, what, just the turns and twists and turns this episode takes, not plot-wise, because it's very straightforward, actually, but just like what it's about, the content of it.
It's, how to describe, I don't know. I don't even know how to describe it because it's like the whole plot is really like motivated by Wash's jealousy, and then just they happen to be in the neighborhood of someone that they screwed over before.
Yeah, I think it's just what kind of struck me about War Stories is like just the combination of the like insipid jealousy and then like the strong dedication to depicting electroshock torture. Just those two things coalesced,
Well, also the how did Book describe him? The warrior, the like dictator turned warrior poet that apparently everybody in this universe has read, I guess. What was his name? Shan
Yu.
Shan Yu. There we go. Shan Yu.
Shan Yu. Yeah. He was real. He was a real guy.
Yeah, it's just surprising that it seems like everybody in this universe seems to have read him.
Well, no, I think what that was, because like we can dive into this because it's how the episode starts. Simon is doing some work in the med bay, and he's talking a bit about River, and he's talking with Book, and Book makes reference to Shan Yu, and skipping ahead a little bit, Niska, the crime lord who returns from the train job, also makes reference to Shan Yu, and I that's supposed, the idea is that like it's putting Book under even more suspicion. I mean, it's building on this sort of mysterious background that has already been established for him, right? Like it seems as if he has some sort of connection to basically organized crime just via this I guess sort of connection here, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like the thematic setup of the whole episode, right? With the like,
right.
you really know someone in the moments before they die, I guess, is kind of the way I'm going to say that.
Right, because what Book says to Simon, he's paraphrasing from Shan Yu, and he says that, like, when you can know someone your entire life, and it's only once you hold them over the edge of the volcano that you really know who they are.
Although then Simon responds, well, what if you don't live by a volcano? The Shepherd Book is like, well, I think he meant it more in a metaphorical sense. The reason why Book brings this up is because he's kind of theorizing like why they opened River's brain up so much. Because he thinks maybe they're like trying to really understand what River, who she is, at the end of her life kind of thing. And Simon kind of thinks that they were looking for something, or that they were trying to do something in particular, that it wasn't like they were torturing her. The primary goal of the surgeries wasn't torture. Obviously it was torture, but like that wasn't the goal, as Shepherd Book seems to imply that he thinks it might have been.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, we get the information that Inara is going to be seeing a counselor. And importantly to Mal, the counselor is going to be coming aboard Serenity.
Yeah, she says that she asked Mal for permission for this, because like the counselor didn't want Inara to come to her, because she's a particularly powerful individual, and it's a particularly sensitive matter.
Right, and at this point we actually don't know that the counselor is a woman. It's never stated one way or the other until she shows up. But it's obviously, that they're strongly suggesting that it's a man, just due to prior times that Inara has had clients, and just, I guess, the audience's own assumptions. Definitely my own assumptions.
Yeah, Inara is ribbing Wash about the fact that he needs to keep the ship shape for the counselor to show up, and that means no River and I've Kaylee. I completely blanked on her name for a second there. No River and Kaylee running around the cargo bay chasing each other.
Yeah, because that's what's happening throughout this scene. Is Kaylee is chasing River, trying to get an apple back from her. Because, funnily enough, Jayne, in a bout of guilt over what he did in Ariel, decided to buy apples for everyone. Which on
real apples.
Yeah, so I mean, on the surface, it just seems like a very whatever gesture, but then you kind of remember how hard those might be to come by in the Firefly universe.
Well, conveniently for us, they immediately remind us that.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, because I think Kaylee says like, or maybe I actually think it's Kaylee says like, wow, these are the genuine article. It's been so long since I've had real fruit, or something like that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then she asks Zoe like, why do you cut your fruit? And then Zoe tells this really morbid story about how when her and Mal were part of the resistance, they ran out of rations one day, and they were talking with the Alliance people in like the next trench over, and so they all sent them a bunch of apples with grenades in them. Yeah, and people who bit into the apples had their heads blown off.
Yeah, was that what it was? I had a hard time deciphering what this story was, and at the end of it, I was just like, well, whatever. I'm not going to go back and re-listen to what she just said.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it was. It was like they were out of rations, and they had sort of been friendly with the Alliance trench next to them because they were all kind of out of munitions, and they're just kind of like still fighting because they had to. And they mentioned they're out of rations, and the Alliance people sent them a bunch of apples, and then like before Mal could stop them, people were so hungry they bit into them and had their heads blown off.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Except she says it, okay, the way I said it was pretty morbid, but the way Zoe says is like, she says there's a bunch of people who were perfectly normal, but they ended at the rib cage, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's why she cuts her apples instead of biting into them. And Wash gets a little offended at all of this. He goes like, oh, this is a nice memory that you have with Mal. And you get the impression that he is hearing this for the first time as well.
Well, yeah, because he says, like, when Kaylee points this out and is like, why do you always cut your fruit? You always cut your fruit. And I think Wash actually says, like, you do?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Wash is like 50% pathetic / sympathetic in this episode. Both of those at the same time, but then also like 50% like, really, dude? Like, I don't know. He doesn't come across in a great light in this episode.
I was yeah, like so he gets into this argument right now actually with Zoe, where Mal comes into the room and says like, oh yeah, we're gonna go exchange the last of these medical supplies for money, and he like, I don't know, he says something about Wash, and then afterwards Wash is like, oh, so like you told me you didn't even tell the captain about my plan, but you told him, and then Mal just hated it, and then you lied to me. Which, like, I'm kind of empathetic to his cause here. Like, it's kind of, like, not cool of Zoe to, like, just lie through her teeth to Wash about this. And he goes on about, if she didn't like the plan, she should have just told him instead of, like, using Mal as like, a shield, instead of going through Mal, because she knew Mal would dislike the plan, too, and then, like, pretending not to tell Wash.
Right, so she kind of shortchanged him here is the idea. And, of course, Mal walks in at the most inopportune time.
Yeah, well, so they're, like, going to the drop, and Zoe's like, somebody messed with the takeoff sequence. And then Wash walks in and he's like, it was me! It was me, James, the author of all your pain. Okay, that's a not a topical reference.
I don't even know that reference.
Referencing, for all the James Bond fans in the audience, Spectre.
I see.
I could have also referenced those lame Flashpoint memes. It was like, it was me, Barry, all along. I jerked you off at super speed so that you would soil your pants in front of your crush. There's another topical meme reference.
Yeah, I'm just sitting here flabbergasted at all these references that I've never seen the referent point to. Whatever, that sentence made no sense.
Well, anyway, Wash comes in, he's like, it was me! And Mal is like, why?
He's less like, why, and he's more like, all right, well, stop, like, fix it. And he's kind of scary in this moment. He goes like, I'm really mad. He's talking really calmly, but he goes like, Wash, like, I'm really mad right now, and I'm armed, so, like, do your job.
Yeah, but then Zoe's like, well, Wash says that the reason why he changed it is because he didn't want them leaving without him. And Zoe's just like, fine, you know what, Wash, you can go with Mal. I'll just stay with the ship.
Right, so Wash sort of finagles his way into coming on this run. And we didn't actually explain his idea, which was to eliminate the middleman in the operation. It doesn't really matter in the long run, considering things go horribly wrong instantly. But yeah, his idea was also, but maybe it is important because his idea is like, it doesn't seem like a great idea. I don't know, just at a glance, so to speak. It seems like one of those ideas that, like, how like people sometimes having an in-depth conversation, and you'll maybe join in halfway or something like that, and suggest like, something, and right, and you'll say something or suggest something, and they'll just like look at you like, yeah, we discussed that like 20 minutes ago, like, where were you, type thing.
Yeah.
There's also a little bit to this scene that we skipped a little bit, where Wash and Zoe, very explicitly say like our marriage is like on the rocks, which is it's like that's not the impression that you really get at the beginning of the show, but like as time goes on, you're like, oh, okay, I see.
Yeah, just dropping this grenade into the episode, just shattering one of the fundamental character relations on the show so far.
Well, like,
for viewer entertainment.
You can see it coming. I mean, it's like, not right off the bat, but like as you watch the show, you start to realize, like, wait a minute, like why are Wash and Zoe like what? Wash and Zoe? What?
Yeah, well, Mal is the coolest of all of them, so it's understandable why Wash is jealous of him.
Right. And I mean, the idea, just to sum it up, and not beat around the bush, although I was not like I was intentionally beating around the bush, but like the idea is that Zoe is like way out of Wash's league.
Yeah, they continue to reinforce this fact when they're when Mal and Wash are on the shuttle and Mal's like, have you ever done this before? And he's like, yeah, I've been in a firefight. Well, I've been in a fire. I was fired from a fry cooking position, but I can handle myself.
Right. Mal's just like, all right.
Yeah, Mal is skeptical.
Meanwhile, River is having a mental breakdown.
Well, that's one way to put it, I guess.
She's just sort of very disturbed. Simon goes into her room and she's not having a good time.
Simon's been trying different medicines to try and make, River's, life a little easier. And he mentions basically that some of what she's feeling right now is a response to the medication.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And she threw up in his bed. Don't forget that.
He says something like, she's like, I don't even know who I am. And he's like, you're my sister. And she's like, I threw up in your bed. And he's like, yep, definitely my sister.
Then we meet the counselor. First, her bodyguard walks in, and Mal thinks that it's her. We skipped ahead a little bit before, so this is before Mal and Wash actually leave.
Yeah, I think so.
We conflated the two scenes where Wash talks to Zoe, and then it's Wash and Zoe and Mal. Those are two separate parts. We just slammed them together.
Yeah, we just kind of explained them in sequential order, implying they're part of the same scene. Mm-hmm. It's fine. The audience knows what we're talking about, probably.
Anyway, it's sort of like it's sort of a funny scene, right? Where the counselor walks in and Nara's like, "Hey, good to see you, counselor." What's up? No, she doesn't say that. And then the rest of the crew looks skeptically on, especially Jayne.
Well, this guy walks in first, and they're like, "Oh, okay," and he like walks around, and then he like goes to his earpiece. He's like, "Everything looks clear for you, counselor," and they're like, "Oh." The counselor comes in, and it's a woman. Mm-hmm. To everyone's shock.
There's a running gag in this episode that I didn't understand. It was like Jayne saying he would be in his room.
He's going to masturbate.
Is that what it was? Yes. I was kind of thinking that's what it was, but I wasn't sure.
Don't worry, I'm here to elucidate it for you.
But it's done in such an oblique way that like you don't even know. I guess that's the gist of or
he
the
just
idea
says,
or something.
I'm going to be in my bunk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this is his first moment of going to be in the bunk. You actually basically get it confirmed that that's what it is, because at the end of the episode when Wash takes Zoe, he's like, we'll be in our bunk. And you know exactly what they're going to do.
Oh, I guess, yeah, all right.
Anyway, yeah, so the counselor arrives, and I think that's actually all we see of her right now. I think there's another scene with her, but I think it's a little later.
Yeah, we see her going to Inara's shuttle right now. So Inara starts giving her like this sort of massage. It doesn't even look like a real massage. It just looks like she's touching her back. They have a little bit of a conversation here. I forget what they say, honestly.
Well, the counselor basically says, well, Inara is saying, I guess what is kind of implied to be like what she says as a companion, like part of her job, and the counselor's like, look, the only reason I'm here is because I need to relax, like away from my job and everything, and like away from people who expect things of me. So like I just want there to be like no expectations. And Inara responds by being like, yeah, most of my clientele are men, and like I always have to put up a front with them because it's like, you know, they're men. So yeah, let's just have a good time with no expectations.
Right, kind of mirroring the sort of intimate, not intimate as in like sexual or romantic, but intimate as in like you're sharing being tortured together. So there's some correlation there, you know, some relation. It's sort of an intimate scene between Mal and Wash, where you know they're very much it's centered around like competition or something like that over Zoe.
Right.
I guess that scenes like these that are why Joss Whedon sort of garnered a reputation as like a feminist or something. You know, perhaps unduly. Actually, not perhaps. I'll just say it unduly.
Yeah, I don't know. The scene was weird to me because it's not like we've never seen Inara with any of her clients before, but like the counselor was like naked, you know? And there's like, this is a lot more sensual, a lot more pushing the boundaries of what we can show on TV, which just makes it feel weird, like fetishizing lesbian relationships almost, or woman-loving woman relationships. Whereas in the same show, like, we you know, whenever we see Inara with a man, it's like very contractual. It's like, I don't know, maybe it's part of Inara's character that she's more comfortable with women, you know, but it's hard to look at it through that lens, knowing everything we know about Joss.
Well, we saw her sort of in a more disrobed state with what's his face, the kid in Jamestown, not the kid, the 26-year-old guy.
Mm-hmm.
If you remember back to that. Yeah. So it's actually interesting that like, and this is something, now that I think about it, this is something we referenced back when we watched the first episode and they introduced Inara. There's a scene where she's like giving herself a sponge bath, if you remember that. And you were like, yeah, so like, of course they would show like the prostitute character in like a naked state. And then we kind of discussed it a little bit and we're like, well, okay, it really wasn't that like, it wasn't like it wasn't like sexual or anything like that. Not really. Or at least it wasn't very gratuitous. So it's actually interesting that like you do see, I don't like, for lack of a better term, like Firefly is willing to show more skin when the relationship like between Inara and one of her clients means more than something like just getting off or something like that, for the client at least.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if what I just said makes sense, but
I think it did. I think it made sense. Ish.
Anyway, Mal and Wash are going on this run.
And they everything seems to be going fine. They they give the money to the people they're meeting with. They give the drugs. Right. They get the money. Is what I meant to say. They get the money. And as soon as they get the money, Mal notices like a red sniper dot on the man's head, and they're like, "Get down!" And so the three people they're meeting with get shot. We actually forgot. We skipped over a critical scene actually, right at the beginning of this episode, after Simon and Shepherd Book have their discussion about Shan Yu, we cut to Niska. Yeah, remember Niska from the train job? Yeah, he's back, torturing a guy, and he's about to like slice him with a knife, and one of his guards comes in and is like, Niska, we gotta talk to you. And he's like, not now, I'm torturing someone. The guy's like, yeah, but I think we have a lead on Serenity. And Niska's like, wait, this is great. Go bring Mal to me. And then he says, like, to the guys torturing, he's like, so, have you ever read Shan Yu? Anyway, that whole scene is relevant because right now, obviously, these people who are killing the people they're meeting with and kidnapping Mal and Wash are Niska's people.
Right. How'd you like those ghillie suits, huh? They're sort of... Because the snipers are sort of nearby and they're disguised. They're blending in with the desert.
Yeah, because of their ghillie suits.
I think those are ghillie suits. I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, they are. Don't second guess yourself now. You were correct.
What happens next? Looking through my notes here.
They get taken to Niska.
Right. I think the next we see of Mal and Wash, they're actually in the torture chamber being electroshock tortured already.
Yelling at each other about Zoe.
Right. And it's like, Wash, are you like, this is really not the time for this. Come on, man.
So Wash is basically just elaborating on his, feelings about how because Zoe and Mal have all these war stories that Zoe clearly likes him better than Wash.
Mal's like, well, all right then. Like, if that's how you feel, well, because I guess Wash eventually says, like, you know what? I actually wish Zoe did just sleep with you at some point because she's clearly not over you, type thing. Because he was wondering, like, oh, did you guys ever, did you guys sleep together? Did you? Didn't you? I don't know. But then he says, like, no, they didn't because she's clearly not over Mal, which may be true.
Mm-hmm.
And then as soon as he says that, he's like, as soon as he says, like, you know what? Go ahead, sleep with her, Mal. Mal's like, all right. And Wash is like, no, just kidding.
Well, actually, Wash doesn't say that. He just goes, oh,
no.
And is passed out.
He just goes, ugh.
And Mal is like, Wash, you gotta wake up. You're gonna die.
Yeah, so it's sort of, I mean, it's sort of a humorous scene, right? Because they're being tortured as they're talking about this.
Yeah, Niska is getting lots of enjoyment out of this, watching this. So they do. Sorry, I'm going to try that whole sentence again. Zoe realizes that it's been too long for Mal and Wash, and they decide that they better come up with a plan to get him back. So Zoe pools all their profits from the medicine together and basically says that she'll offer Niska this money in exchange for Mal and Wash. And if she's not back in, quote, a reasonable time period to leave.
Right. The rest of the crew, though, I believe... Oh God, what... I'm having a hard time remembering. So, like, they go along with the plan, but they also serve as backup. I think Shepherd Book is the first one to be like, hey, like, you need someone to go in with you. I'll be that someone.
Well, that's before... Yeah, that's actually... Sorry, I conflated a little bit. Zoe hasn't collected the money yet. She actually takes Simon and Shepherd Book to go to the meeting spot to see if they can get any clues. And they go there, and that's when they realize it was Niska, because they were taken by like a short-range transport, so it had to be like a space station nearby, and that's when Zoe realizes it was Niska, and then that's when Zoe pools all the money.
Right. And so just casting a little bit more suspicion on Shepherd Book, he is able to easily identify like the exact type of wounds that the guys who got killed suffered. Like he knows like the bullet types, like the guns that fired them type thing. Like way more than he
Everyone's
should.
looking at Shepherd Book like, what? He's like, this was an X-17 sniper rifle fired from 500 miles away with with hollow point bullets fired exactly 2 hours ago. And everyone's like, what?
Fired from 500 miles away. There's some really fast snipers. They just show up instantly as soon as they shoot. Also, like, the longest range rifle ever made. Sorry, I know you're just making that number up, but like, yeah.
Yeah, that was just a number that I kind of just pulled out of thin air.
Which is why I was sorry to dwell on it, but yet I did anyway.
Apology not accepted. Apology rejected.
That should be a more common phrase. Apology rejected.
Apology rejected. We should have named this podcast Apology Rejected.
Speaking of apologizing and getting rejected, I was going to talk about this at the end, but since we're already on the topic, kind of, it's interesting to me that, like, that Jayne, and this is something I was thinking about recently in relation to the Grinch, the Doctor Seuss story. Check out Trust Your Doctor or Doctor Who podcast. But is that, like, I think we were talking about this on either this podcast or Trust Your Doctor, actually. But it's like the main thematic thrust of how the Grinch Stole Christmas is that, like, feelings of guilt are a sufficient basis for absolution. You know, which is why that book is, like, when you think about it, actually kind of radical. You know? And it feels like Jayne is kind of falling into that same category, right? Where he's buying these apples. He's obviously doesn't feel good about what he did. And it's like, does that really absolve him, though? You know? Most people, I think, would say no.
Yes, we have absolved Jayne. Jayne is absolved. Blessings be upon you, my child.
The Absolution of Jayne Cobb, yeah. It sounds like a fanfic.
There's going to be the name of my 5,000-word critical essay discussing Firefly once we finish the season.
Mm-hmm.
I think at this point we have the scene where the counselor leaves the ship, and we see Shepherd Book getting absolutely shredded.
Oh, right.
Lifting weights.
Oh, right. I was like, wait, what?
Did you forget about Shepherd Book getting swole?
And Jayne failing to spot him? Yeah, does he really feel so bad after all? Do you, Jayne? You're not doing a great job.
Yeah, he was too busy watching the counselor leave, and Shepherd Book's there, like, struggling to even hold the bar.
He's about to die. Like, Shepherd Book is about to be crushed under more weight than he can handle.
And then Jayne just grabs it with one hand and lifts it onto the thing and goes, "I'll be in my bunk." Shepherd Book goes, "Okay."
Well, you know that's a sin. Now, don't. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't think masturbation is a sin. Not unless you go to one of those crazy churches.
Well, it's in the Bible, right? It's like you're not supposed to do it.
Yeah, is it? I don't know.
I think it is. It's some guy in the Bible it's in Genesis or Exodus or something. Sorry.
I googled, is masturbation a sin? And according to the Wikipedia page, religious views on masturbation, there is no explicit claim in the Bible that masturbation is sinful.
Yeah, I remember something along those lines. I'll see if I can find it.
I think it depends on your church, really. Like, I don't think it's actually in the Bible. I think it depends on which church you are and how they interpret the Bible.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's my thinking on it. This religious views on masturbation page is incredibly long.
Well, hey, there are a lot of views on it.
Shocking, right? Shocking. Almost as many views as there are religions.
Almost as many views as our podcasts get. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Podcasts don't get views. They get listens and downloads.
I thought you were going to say our podcasts don't get views.
That too, yeah.
Silly Keon. Views are for better podcasts. Okay, so anyway, Zoe takes the money to Niska. Niska is evidently really glad that he's going to be able to make Zoe choose between Mal and Wash. But before he even finishes his sentence, Zoe's like, Wash. And Niska's like, what? She's like, you were going to make me choose, right? Well, I choose Wash. He was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and this is sort of like, it's really, you know, it's painting Wash in a terrible light and Zoe in a great one, right? It's like this whole episode, Wash is just so insecure and so easily set off by the smallest of things. And then Zoe just steps in and she's like, yeah, Wash. You could, another way you could read this, though, I guess, is like, Mal is much more capable than Wash, so like, and Zoe knows that, of course, so, you know, she sort of saves the one who needs more saving type thing, which isn't a bad thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, they don't even get off the ship before Wash goes, I would like to stage a rescue mission. And Zoe's like, okay, I guess.
They're also given Mal's ear, like Niska just orders his ear, you know, cut off. He says the money is too much. He needs to compensate. So they just literally slice off his ear.
Yeah, so he gives him an ear.
Just Van Goghs him right then and there.
He just Van Goghs him. They get back to the ship and Zoe hands the ear wrapped up to Simon and is like, keep this on ice. And Simon's like, what is it? Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
They conveniently have Simon say a line here where he's like, well, it was a pretty clean cut, so if I can get Mal back, I can probably reattach it. Just setting up exactly what's going to happen at the end of the episode.
Right. This is going to sound stupid. I'm going to say it anyway. I've said stupider things. Why the hell not?
Okay. Okay.
You can't actually do that, right? Like, if you got your ear fully chopped off, you couldn't reattach it and regain your hearing, right?
I'm Googling it. Can you reattach someone's ear? Oh, no.
I'm sure you can reattach. I'm just wondering, like, if you lose hearing because your ear is cut off, you can't reattach it and regain the hearing back.
Wow. Okay. Well, there are images in this article that I didn't want to see. Yep. Nope. I didn't want to see that. Nope.
Oh God.
Ears you can reattach, but it tends to be tricky. I don't think you actually lose your hearing if you have the ear cut off, because most of your hearing is done via the eardrum, which is inside the ear canal. So if only your exterior ear is cut off, you won't lose your hearing, you'll just lose your ear. Apparently, a severed ear or nose can be quite durable because cartilage is pretty slow to decay.
Huh.
This is from an article about reattaching someone's genitals.
Oh, boy.
I mean, the thesis of the article is, can you attach, what body parts can you reattach? But it's framed, in the first paragraph, last Saturday night in Anchorage, Alaska, a man's girlfriend cut off his and flushed it down the toilet. A municipal worker recovered the surgeons had sewed it back on by morning. How long can you wait before reattaching a severed body part? Like, that's what they decided to open it with.
Hey, it gets you interested. I mean, it's sort of a sensational story.
It was actually the second link I clicked, because the first one was a peer-reviewed paper published in 2017 entitled Microsurgical Replantation of an Amputated Ear, that I scrolled down and just right there in the paper's not very long. It's really just about this one case study, is images of them reattaching a partially severed ear, and there's just blood everywhere, and I'm gonna stop looking at that.
Well, nice. I'll be sure not to open that link when it's in the show notes.
I'll put a warning. I'll put a warning for all our unsuspecting show notes perusers.
Yeah. All the keen-eyed purveyors of our show notes. The true literati of podcasts. I think literati is actually a derogatory term. I'm not even sure.
Great.
Googling
all the
right
people
now.
who decide to read the podcast. You
No,
can
it's
actually learn a
not
lot
actually.
from reading our random show notes. You know, I'm just going to throw this out there. There's some pretty interesting stuff in our show notes.
Yeah, there's stuff that you would never... We've said this multiple times before, but it bears repeating. Like, this podcast and the other podcasts that we do have prompted me to look up things that I never thought I would be looking up.
Yeah, I know. Who would have known a podcast would have me Googling, can you reattach a severed ear? I'm definitely on a list now. The government's going to be like, what are you doing, sir?
So then they stage this this rescue mission.
Yeah, at first it's just going to be Zoe and Wash going in, but then everybody suits up with some guns, and she's like, Shepherd? Like, doesn't the Bible say thou shalt not kill? And he's like, Dad, but that... He goes, yeah, but that doesn't say anything about kneecapping people. Everyone again goes, what?
Yeah. And he just looks at them like, what? Did I say something?
And then Jayne comes down, suited up, looking like the Predator, you know, not the Predator, looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger in Predator.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, what? Everyone's like, oh.
And he just says, I'll be in my bunk, and he walks away down.
No, so they come up with this plan to basically turn off their engine. They just point themselves at the space station, turn off the, you know, give it some thrust, and then turn off the engines and just kind of sail engines off towards the space station and hope that they, you know, get the right angle.
Which they do. They do. They successfully land. They maybe not so successfully infiltrate. Yeah, they're fairly successful. It's really Shepard Book doing the bulk of, like, the shooting, actually.
Pinpoint accuracy. Too bad he's not saying killer one-liners like, I smite thee.
I know.
I strike you down with the power of my holy gun.
Yeah, like, may God have mercy because I sure won't. Something like that. Yeah, what...
See you in hell, boys.
You did that last week, too. You gave him, like, a snappy one-liner.
Shepard Book.
Yeah. It was, so you were looking for salvation or something? God, I don't know why. That's so funny to me.
For some reason, he's just my favorite character. I don't know why. I think it's because he's this religious character in this, like, amoral universe.
Yeah, who is himself.
And he's, like, at the same time, he's, like, one of the most knowledgeable criminals of the whole group.
Yeah. Again, we never get his backstory. It was, you know, probably just sort of a foreshadowing or, like, a tease for a season 2 that never happened. But yeah, like, you can very easily sort of, I guess, headcanon him into being, not even headcanon, because there's enough evidence, honestly, to say so, you know, that he was sort of a criminal. In the vein of Mal.
Maybe he even became a preacher because he was seeking salvation. Mm-hmm. He was seeking absolution in the way that Jayne is, by just being like, yeah, I feel pretty bad about it. Although he's doing more about it, I guess, in this theoretical framework.
You could even have it be like, I know this is, like, not really a Western since it's basically literary fiction, But you could even have it be like sort of a Graham Greene, like Power and the Glory type thing with this priest. You've read that book, right?
Yeah. It's one of my favorites. Top 10.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites actually as well. It's in my like top 5, top 10 at least. But it's basically, for anyone who doesn't know, it's this book about this wandering priest/preacher, Catholic priest in like southern Mexico, who has like sinned, and he's going around. He's like, and this is during the time when they were killing all the priests. And he's sort of covertly operating as a priest while also secretly, looking for another priest to give him absolution, because you can't like absolve yourself as a priest or something like that. So he knows he's going to hell, and he's trying to find another priest while also doing his duties. It's a really interesting book. It's really well written too.
The ending of the book. This is okay. I've wanted to tell somebody this, somebody who would get this joke / reference for years. I'm going to say it on the podcast. I'm going to put it out into the world. The end of that book. Okay, so I know the end of the book is like, it's a different unnamed priest, in that final chapter, like, the main character. It's a different priest than the main character. But the first time I read it, I didn't realize that. And I just got like a very like Jason Bourne Identity ending. In Bourne Identity, when they're shooting at Jason and they think he's dead, and then he like surfaces from the river and swims away. Cue Moby outro music, cue credits. That's exactly what I imagined in my mind when I was reading the book, and just the unnamed priest comes back from the dead, and I'm like, it's Bourne Identity. Anyway.
I mean, in a way he figuratively comes back from the dead, because he inspires the unnamed priest and the both of them, the unnamed priest at the end and the main character, inspire that like boy to value religion or something like that, in a time when religion is sort of widely seen as evil.
Yeah, highly recommend you check out Power of the Glory if you are at all interested in anything we've said about it. Really good book.
Yeah, it's probably Graham Greene's best. Well, I haven't read any of his novels. I've just read that one and like a bunch of his short stories. So,
didn't he also write The End of the Affair?
Yep.
Okay.
That's why, like, I'm not familiar with his entire body of work, but like his other novels are so uninteresting premise-wise compared to The Power. They're just like, it's just like posh society and like affairs and stuff like that. And his short stories are kind of in that same vein as well.
Yeah, Power and the Glory is like, even not just for Graham Greene, but in general, a really unique premise for a book.
Yeah. Well, actually, I just remembered
at least
this.
in the English-speaking world, I guess.
Yeah, I just remembered this, but like, that book is like, it's not semi-autobiographical. It's semi-biographical, because he was a reporter in southern Mexico during the, I forget, there's a name for it. I'll put it in the show notes, but it's the time when they were killing all the priests and making religion illegal in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
He was like some sort of correspondent over there, and that's what prompted him to write the book. And that's why it's so different from the rest of his other books, probably. Anyway, back to Firefly.
Yeah, back to Firefly. Where were we? Oh, yeah. Book was kneecapping fools.
There's an interesting... I don't know if you noticed this. This is actually taking us back a little bit to when Zoe first enters the ship, but I just caught it in my notes, so sorry. There's like an interesting 2-factor authentication on the door, where one of the guards has to... I think he uses a card swipe and a number input on like a number pad to open the door. So, hey, 2-factor authentication before that was even, a thing on anyone's radar.
And besides, Firefly did it first.
Yeah, I know.
Well, so they successfully rescue Mal after killing some people. I think Mal kills Niska, so that resolves that problem.
He does I totally missed that.
Was it somebody... I thought Niska does the Palpatine thing and falls down the reactor shaft.
Wasn't that the assistant guy who was doing part of the torturing?
Yeah, that's possible.
I'm pretty sure it was him. Let me just look on the Wikipedia summary real quick.
Yeah, I'm looking on the wiki page. Yeah, that is the assistant. Niska escapes.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure he doesn't return.
Probably a season 2 setup.
Yep.
Maybe.
I imagine, like, if Firefly season 2 had happened, you know, they would have their final showdown with Niska or something like that. Not a very far-fetched
Final?
idea.
You think they wouldn't milk that shit for another 4 episodes?
I know, make a whole, like, Niska arc. Why not?
Look, it's hard work introducing a villain to begin with. So once you get a good one, you're inclined to try keep them around so that you don't have to do all the legwork of introducing them again.
Sure. Well, a couple more interesting things happen in the shootout while Zoe is rescuing Mal. Kaylee is completely frozen. She can't even fire. Simon is somewhere in between her and Book, where he is trying to help, but he's not doing a very good job, and he's a little bit hesitant. And then River just steps out. I don't remember if she was actually supposed to be part of this operation, but my guess is no. But she just steps out with a gun and starts just murdering people.
Well, when you've got the knowledge that she has, are we really surprised?
I know, yeah, this is what happens when your amygdala gets removed.
You just become a godless killing machine.
Oh my god, I should have taken her instead of frickin' Wash of all people. Kaylee witnesses this, and this really colors the relationship between Kaylee and River, which was very amicable and kind of friendly at the beginning of the episode. And now at the end of the episode, Kaylee, you know, sort of just looks at her like she's a monster.
Well, they're bound in blood now.
They're what?
They're bound in blood because she saved Kaylee's life.
Oh yeah, okay, I guess. Okay,
I was watching the new Bond movie the other day, and there's an interesting scene that's relevant to this, where like the main villain has a long speech about how like killing people, you know, killing someone binds you to them forever because they die, but saving someone's life also binds you to them forever because they owe you now. And they're bound to you basically forever because their existence was completely contingent on you.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Of course, in the movie, that's told in a much more sinister way, but like I think the kind of overall point of that is kind of relevant here.
Yeah, it seems pretty interesting.
Well, there is also another funny scene. Not really funny, actually. Once they've rescued everyone, Simon doesn't know how to feel about having killed someone, and Shepherd Book steps in with the, "Son, I was there, and I don't think you killed anyone."
Yeah, well,
it'd be a miracle if you even hit anyone, Simon.
Right, he says, like, I don't know what to feel. What does he says in, like, such a snappy, sort of Joss Whedon way. But yeah, basically that was just of it. I don't remember exactly what it was. Sorry.
Yeah, close enough.
He's like, I don't know what to feel now that I've killed someone. And Book is like, you know, it's like, I think you can go on not knowing what to feel for a little bit longer because you didn't hit anyone back there.
Nice. Useful Simon. It's like at the beginning of the episode when Shepherd Book, because remember, he was off Serenity during the events of Ariel, says something like, "I hear you're moonlighting as a criminal mastermind now, Simon."
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Definitely is was the brains of that operation, and could potentially be the brains of future operations if they let him.
Yeah, I mean, well, notice that like the only operation they've done so far that ended successfully in the whole show was the one that Simon planned.
True enough. I wonder if like any potential, future season of Firefly, or like, alternate universe where Firefly got season 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever. Like, I wonder if it might contend with like this idea that maybe Simon is really the successor to Mal. Right? It's not Jayne, it's not any of the other ones. It's actually Simon, the sort of one you least expect.
I'd really like them to explore Shepherd Book being the successor.
Anyway, to wrap up, we resolve this sort of love triangle.
Yeah, Mal comes in and he's like, so did you tell her about our deal, Wash? And he's like, what? And he's like, Zoe, Wash wants me to sleep with you. And she's like, oh, Captain, take me hard. And Jayne kind of just looks and goes, this is the most disturbing thing I've ever seen.
Yeah,
this is when... So go ahead.
I was just gonna say, is that when it ends? I don't remember how it ends. I have a very fuzzy memory of this episode.
Wash grabs Zoe and is like, we'll be in our bunk. And then Jayne goes, hey, free soup. Because Zoe made Wash soup, I guess, to say sorry for everything.
Oh, right. Yeah, it was weird that she made him the soup. If you remember back to our Mrs. Reynolds, she, Wash suggests that she cook something for him after what's-her-face, Saffron, did for Mal. Saffron. Can't believe I remember her name.
The wiki even calls this a Saffron-like display of marital devotion.
Yeah, again, it's just sort of, it's just pounding Wash into the ground here. It's really not making him look good, since he was really the one who incited all of this.
Well, it's interesting. That's the end of the episode, but it is interesting to actually think about how, if Wash hadn't insisted he go with Mal instead of Zoe, this episode would have, probably ended with Mal and Zoe dead, because nobody else on the ship would have realized that they were, missing. It was Zoe being on the ship and originally going to go on the drop, realized that the drop had taken too long. I guess you could maybe argue that maybe Jayne would figure it out, but he seemed a little distracted by the counselor. Yeah,
they wouldn't, and regardless of whether they would have figured it out, they wouldn't have had the leadership to mount that attack without Zoe. I think you can
Which
see that.
Which actually brings
up
a good point. Why does Zoe always go with Mal and leave leave the ship in Jayne's hands? And historically we've seen that not go particularly well.
Well, that's sort of the gist of this episode, right? Is Wash is feeling left out. He's feeling, just all the things we talked about while we were, describing the story here. But at the end, he comes to realize why, and he says this very explicitly. He's he comes to realize why Mal is the captain that he is, and why he's such a great man, why Zoe respects him so much, type thing. And really also why Zoe is the one going along with him. Type thing as well.
Yeah, well, it's those old war buddies, reliving their glory days.
Yeah, I guess you could put it that way.
I would find it really interesting to see the show explore, Mal's probable PTSD from fighting a damn civil war and losing.
Maybe, well, that's we're watching it, right? This is him dealing with it.
Oh yeah, that's true. Badly, I guess.
We actually skipped one of the, I think, more important lines of the episode of dialogue, where I forget what exactly prompts him to say this, but Mal essentially says to Wash, Zoe and I have always been extremely close. We were old war buddies. he references the sort of sexual tension, I guess, between them. But he says I could never figure her out. Like there's always something that I could never figure out about her. And Wash goes like, oh yeah, what? And he says like, or he's like, I could never really fully connect with her. And Wash goes like, oh yeah, well it seems like you haven't. But I'm describing this badly, but he basically says, you know what I'm talking about, right? Where he goes like, she married you, and he's like, why did she do that, right?
Yeah, it was. Wash says she always follows your orders, and Mal says, well, she doesn't always follow my orders. And Wash says, well, name one time she didn't follow your orders. And he says, she married you.
Right.
Which, when it's brought up, is like, he's saying it in a very hurtful way, to hurt Wash, to be like, well, I didn't want her to marry you. Because I think he elaborates later and says that he didn't think Wash was good enough for her or something like that.
Right, and at the same time, though, he's also revealing, like, that sort of hurt him in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like, maybe that's sort of I don't know, a Sean Yu-esque thing, not exactly, but like a Sean Yu-esque thing, like they were talking about at the beginning, where it's like, he has Wash sort of on the edge of this volcano, yet he's revealing himself or something. Or they're both. I mean, it's Niska who has them on the edge, but like, in criticizing Wash, he's saying more about himself, really.
Mm-hmm. Although none of that tension gets resolved by the end of the episode, except Wash, I guess, just learns to trust Zoe more, I suppose, around Mal.
Yeah, I think he just comes to realize, like, why things are the way they are.
He just comes to accept the world for what it is.
Well, that's War Stories.
Yeah, that's War Stories. I was about to say, I don't think I actually have anything else to talk about. The only thing I wanted to talk about was how if Wash hadn't insisted that he go on, interestingly, everyone would probably be dead.
Yeah, the only thing I really wanted to talk about is something we already touched on, which is that, like, yeah, I can see why people, especially when it comes to Shepherd Book, would latch on to this show just because of the amount of mysteries they're setting up, particularly with his character, but also just in general. And yeah, none of these ever get elaborated on, unfortunately. Well, maybe fortunately, maybe it's the mystery of it that is the thing that is good about it or something.
Yeah, maybe it's the lack of knowledge that makes it interesting. The blank canvas that it leaves. Right.
There's a value in ambiguity. I think people tend not to appreciate that maybe as much as they should anymore.
That was something we talked about with The Prisoner, because it kind of went, The Prisoner had intentional ambiguity, I wouldn't say Firefly is intentionally ambiguous to the level of The Prisoner is, but there is ambiguity because we only got one season. But we talked about this on on The Prisoner, when The Prisoner was being intentionally ambiguous. We talked a lot about how, like, if they had given us any more information, it would actually be a lot less interesting because we would know too much, basically.
Yeah.
There wouldn't be any mystery for the audience.
Yeah, if that show was just more straightforward in general, and definitely if it ended in a way that, like, sat you down and was like, all right, here's what the village is, here's what was happening type thing, it wouldn't even be, no one would be discussing it anymore. It would have just been lost to time.
Yeah, maybe even would not have been that popular when it was on originally because, there is something to be said about having a mystery for the audience to solve, not just getting people to watch the show, but also giving people a sort of engagement in the show so that they have something to do as well instead of just passively watching it. That's why watching something like, to make a topical reference, like Doctor Who Flux, which we're in the middle of right now, like that first episode just opening so many questions and like opening that up to the audience and be like, well, what's going on? What's this? What's that? There is something to be said about giving the audience the ability to play along, so to speak.
Yeah, and of course, every story, all narrative art just is what it is. There's some things that can only be expressed in certain ways, and sometimes that means not detailing every single bit of what people might expect you to detail every single bit of.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that people who are really interested in TV and movies don't appreciate enough. What? Who said that?
Nice dunk.
Yeah, sorry to say, but like, people who are more interested in, I guess, just literature type stuff or reading, I feel grasp that a little bit better.
Well, the people who get the job are the ones who make shows that make the most money.
Exactly, like Joss Whedon.
Nice. Except Firefly, which got cancelled.
Mm-hmm. It actually, we talked about this briefly before, but it's not like Firefly was even doing bad. It was just like management changed at Fox, and they decided they wanted to take their, they decided to go in a different direction from, I guess, where Firefly was taking them.
Was taking it, yeah.
This was getting, you can look at the ratings on the episode list on Wikipedia. Like, it's not bad. Not bad at all.
Yeah, it really isn't. It's not on the level of some of the other things we've watched. Lex!
Oh, Lex. A truly unforgettable show, unfortunately enough.
Well, it killed Inevitable.
I know.
Killed it. Dead.
It's such a woeful show just in its entirety. Like, everything about it kind of just makes me want to gouge my eyes out with a plastic spork.
You didn't like the fully CG sets? The fact that they had such a low budget, they couldn't even build things to shoot on. They just shot on a green screen.
Yeah, half of our main character's lines being him screaming, Lex!
The strange inclusion of a shower scene in episode 2 that leads to no conflict at all.
I know the gratuitous, like, shots of, like, what's her face, semi or fully nude.
Xena, or whatever. Zev, it was Zev.
Yeah, Zev.
The robot head who sings All Night by the Zev, All Night by the Zev Highway. The most annoying TV robot of all time.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, literally not an exaggeration. Just toiling down memory lane here.
Okay, well, we need not dwell on that when we have some segments to do. Namely, were there any Western tropes this week?
Not really. I don't think so.
Yeah, I couldn't really think of any either, actually. I was perturbed. I am disturbed to say that there were no Western tropes this week that I could think of. But TV tropes probably knows. Not that I'm going to open the TV tropes page for this episode.
I thought that's what you were... thought that's what you were indicating you were about to do, but okay.
All right, guess I am now. TV tropes, Firefly war stories. Okay, well, there's a whole list of tropes here. I'm just going to link this in the show notes. I'm not going to bother to read all of them.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I couldn't give you any Western elements to the story or anything like that. I watched some more behind-the-scenes features on the Blu-ray. I forget if we usually do these before the actors or after. I think we do them before.
Before.
Yeah.
Actors is usually the very last thing we do before emails.
Yeah. So might as well just go over those. I watched two. I'm on disc 3 now of the 15th anniversary Blu-ray, so there's a couple more special features, things to watch on there. So I watched 2 of them. They were pretty short. I didn't expect them to be... I expected one to be as short as it was. I didn't expect the other one to be. The one I didn't expect to be as short as it was Joss Whedon goes behind the scenes on the sets of Firefly. So this was obviously made in like 2002 or maybe 1 when they were creating the show. It's literally only a minute and a half. I don't know where this was aired, where this was included, but it's literally just a minute and a half of him kind of explaining the show and walking around some sets. He says something interesting, though. Okay, there's two interesting things about this in general, I guess. One is that he has a full beard. So just imagine Joss Whedon with a beard. I think maybe he has one now. I don't know. Whatever. I think
pretty much since then he's had one.
Okay.
I think he's had one pretty much ever since.
I had always seen him without one. For all the behind-the-scenes features on Firefly, but...
Oh, yeah, that checks.
The other thing that was interesting was that he says in this something that I had never seen referenced anywhere else, but he says the whole point of Firefly is to make a show where space is like something in the now, something that you yourself are caught in, not something that is like not something that he says is grand or unapproachable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I don't know exactly what he means by that,
yes.
but I feel that with Firefly. You know, I don't really know what you're saying, but yeah, sure.
Whatever he's saying, I'm picking up what he's throwing down.
I know. Yeah, that was it. That was the only real interesting thing in that minute and a half. The other behind-the-scenes thing I watched was him singing and performing on guitar the intro theme, which he
Joss Whedon?
Yeah, he's not a great singer. You know, doesn't have a great voice on him. But
oh, okay. Brutally honest from Keon today.
Not a great guitar player either. But props. He wrote the song and sang it and played the guitar part for it. So good for him.
Should we sing the song in our final episode of Firefly? Should we sing about not taking the sky from us?
We could, maybe. We read... I came close to singing when I read the Ballad of Jayne.
We could do a very dramatic reading of the title theme.
Yeah. We could read it like poetry. It's always funny when you read songs like they're poetry. Because like the way you're supposed to read poetry, which barely anyone does, but the way you're supposed to read it is with the punctuation, not with the line breaks.
We should read it like slam poetry.
No, yeah, like we're really, sort of mad at someone or something like that. Oh, I actually did have a Western thing. I wrote it down here. It was at the very end of my notes for some reason. It was that they used revolvers. I don't remember where in the episode it was or anything about it. I guess it's probably when they're gearing up to go save Mal, they have some revolvers.
Zoe also loads up a shotgun. An old-timey shotgun, though, not like a present-day shotgun.
Oh, I remember now. She's handing Wash these revolvers, and she goes like, all right, 6 shots. When you're done, just toss it.
Yeah, I guess that works.
Yeah, not trusting Wash to reload. And the fact that it takes 20 years to reload a revolver.
Not unless you get a quick loader.
Yeah, that's all I had.
Yeah, all right. Well, I guess that's a great segue into doing America's 10 actors then. Let's see. I looked up... Whoop. Not that tab. That's my IMDb tab for James A. Contner. No, I looked up Catherine Kendall, who plays the counselor. She's been in a surprising amount of things that I don't recognize, but anyway, we're just going to go for it. Rosewood, Monk. She was in a TV show called Flatland, which I checked is not related to the, classic cartoon that every math teacher ever shows when they're teaching, dimensionality, I
have no idea what you're talking about, but okay.
It's actually a really interesting story about, it's... Your social status is determined by how many sides you have, I think. It's actually based on a rather old novella I'm just finding out right now, published in 1884. The story describes a two-dimensional world occupied by geometric figures where women are simple line segments and men are polygons with various numbers of sides. And basically, the number of sides you have determines your, social class, and it's a satire on, social class.
On life.
Yeah, on life. Yeah, so anyway, back to Catherine Kendall, NYPD Blue, and The Young Indiana Jones Chronicles was her very first acting credit. She was also in Beverly Hills 90210.
Huh, cool. Well, I looked up Rolando Molina, who played the assistant to Niska, the one who fell down that shaft Palpatine style and Darth Maul style. He's actually a very prolific actor. I don't want to say actually, but I guess it's just like his role in this wouldn't indicate that, but he is. So he has over 100 credits. I'm just going to go through some of them here. He was in Seinfeld, ER, Dangerous Minds. What else here? LA Doctors, Two Guys, a Girl, in a Pizza Place, Seventh Heaven. I'm just randomly reading some of these off. My Wife and Kids, and he was also in NYPD Blue.
Weird.
Yeah. I think I also saw him in Monk. Don't quote me on that though.
Weird.
I guess I'll see in a second. He was on CSI Miami, The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody.
Oh, nice, bringing that back.
General Hospital. Sons of Anarchy. Wow. Dexter. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. American Dad. Family Guy. He's in Animal Kingdom. A bunch of other things. I didn't see Monk on the list as I was scrolling, so don't quote me on that. But I'll look it up.
Quote you on it. Got it.
I'll just actually just Control F it right now. No, there's no mention of Monk on this IMDb page. So if he was in the show, they're not picking up on it. Which probably means he wasn't.
I know, I like how you were assuming automatically that IMDb must be wrong.
Well, I'm just covering my bases here. He's like, they could be wrong. He could have been in the show, and they could have just not gotten him his credit.
Yeah, okay, I suppose that's true. Fair enough.
They're not reporting that he was in Monk, I'll say.
Okay.
And I would assume they're right about that.
I'm just going to take them at their word.
I think that's that then.
We also have an email this week. Hey guys, enjoyed your discussion of the episode, especially when you talked about hulls. I can confirm that this is both a great book and a great film, one of Shia LaBeouf's best. Regarding the Oceans movies, I watched all the modern ones sometime within the past year, and I think thought they were all just okay and around the same level of quality. Maybe I just don't like heist films that much. They're rarely as cool as the Sly Cooper video games. I also kind of want to agree that the best way to experience Disney animated movies is by playing Kingdom Hearts. I've never played it, but I've heard nothing but good things about these games. I get nostalgic thinking back to the Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories commercial accompanied by a song with memorable lyrics, and then there's a YouTube link that I'll put in the show notes. I thought it was kind of weird when, at the end of the episode, Keon said he'd never heard of Clock Stoppers. We actually went on a little tangent about it on the Matrix episode, the Mafortrix episode of Delayed Replay. Maybe he forgot, or more logically, there was time travel involved. Anyway, kind of a guilty pleasure flick described on the covers Back to the Future for New Generation. It wasn't. Cheers, Steven. Keon got outed by Steven.
Now that he mentioned that, I do remember that.
Nice cover.
No, it's not a cover. It's completely true. I remember discussing it now that he brought it up. But I don't think I had ever really heard about it at that point. Maybe I just pretended like I did because I don't know, for some reason maybe I did. I don't remember. I sincerely don't remember. Yeah.
Should we add Clock Stoppers to the inevitable list of inevitable things?
Is it a movie? Or
it's just a movie, yeah. It's directed by Jonathan Frakes. Neat.
If you want to do a 1-episode season and watch a movie, then
not really, honestly.
Then sure.
Not really. I don't really want to watch Clock Stoppers personally, but I don't know. And so that concludes our episode. So if you would like to email us, you can reach us at thedoctor@decadentvegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on War Stories. You can find us on YouTube at Decorative Vegetable. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and anywhere that you find podcasts at Inevitable, a classic sci-fi podcast. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter at TYD Podcast, and follow us on Twitter. And next time we're watching Trash. And weirdly enough, the episode name itself is Trash, but until then, the end.